2 books every junior officer and anyone who wants to be commissioned into the military should read. Number 1, Starship Troopers. Number 2, Gates of Fire. I know. The movies, they don't paint the best picture of the books. Just hear me out. So, book 1, Starship Troopers. It has one of the best depictions of what it means to be serving in the military and advancing from that lower enlisted person standing in the formation to the officer standing in front of the formation. It has an amazing level of insight on that personal experience, but then also the interactions between you and the other people in your unit, people in different service branches, how those interactions can affect the way you lead and your perceptions on what happens. It is truly remarkable. I wonder if the author, Robert Heinlein, served in the military. I'll have to look that up. But he was able to depict the most perfect picture of what it means to go into that platoon leader role, into that junior officer role, and then experiencing that shift in mindset, because it really is a shift. The other thing that I really, really like about this book, that I think it does better than any other book I've ever read, is it depicts the relationship between the officer and the non-commissioned officer in a way that I've never seen in a fiction book before. It is phenomenal. It is so accurate that I think of these as real people and real examples, because I feel like I've served with them, I've worked with them. And it is such an interesting dynamic in that there's ownership, there's friendship, there's loathing, there's conflict, all the things that you would experience in that type of relationship between the officer and the NCO. And it is really insightful. It is a great, almost instruction book on how to deal with that relationship. So check it out. It's a quick read. There's an amazing audiobook that you can download if you're busy and you drive around a lot like I do. I'm never one to hate on an audiobook. So give it a listen, give it a read. I promise you, you will gain some knowledge from it. Okay, book 2, Gates of Fire. Also was made into sort of a interesting movie. The movie 300 is based on this story. It's about the Spartans at Thermopylae, which is translated into the Gates of Fire, or the Hot Gates. And so the really cool thing about this book is it was written by Steven Pressfield, who's a really interesting guy. He has a lot of good content on there. He's a big military history guy and does a lot of interviews. He's been on Joe Rogan. He's been on some other shows, and definitely worth the listen. He's very opinionated on some things, and I certainly don't agree with him on everything, but his writing is so visceral, and it invokes this almost physical response when you're reading it or you're listening to it, and you can really put yourself into the position of the characters. The things that I really took away from this book in particular are military discipline and the brotherhood that exists between men, particularly in this case, but people in combat environments, and how they prepare and how they get ready for that. And then just the honor and the dignity that is exposed even in the face of overwhelming odds. I mean, if you know anything about the story, you have 300, but the book is much more accurate to the real events than the movie was. And it was more like a couple of thousand people that were facing off against several, 2 million, I think was the highest estimate I saw, Persian army. And so you can understand how that, just even those numbers alone just sound ridiculous. It's hard to fathom. But imagine you're standing on one side of the field and they're standing on the other, and how intimidating that would be. It also has a great line, and they did use this in the movie because it's so good. At one part, one of the Persian generals says, "We have so many archers that their arrows will block out the sun." And one of the Spartans responds back, "Then we'll fight in the shade." And just the audacity and the strength behind that statement, to know that these men were warriors and they were brothers and they fought for the man to their left and right. And I think that is such an amazing lesson that we can take away, especially as a junior leader, because as a junior leader, guess where you're going to be standing? Right there in the front. You're going to be standing there with your men and women, with your people, leading by example. You're not standing in the back. You're not in the office. You're not, on the computer. You're right there where the action is. So that's why I think these 2 books are really, really relevant and can provide you with a lot of good insight. They give you a lot of good lessons to read, especially when you're, the old Army tradition of hurry up and wait. Pull out of your hip pocket, start reading the book. It's worth it, I promise you. Hit me up if you've got any other ones, recommendations. I'd love to look into them. Appreciate your time. If you like this content, hit the subscribe button. Hit me on a message. Love to talk to you. Take care.